Soundstripe.
Ding, you are first tonight. Ha ha. Yes, sirree. Welcome, Ding. Y'all, this is the Hillbilly Think Tank, and I am coming at you live here in Tunnel Hills. I am Spencer Kett, and I know that here in Tunnel Hills and in all of Hardin County, we know that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what makes it all worthwhile. It's why we're all here, what keeps us going. But these principles are under attack. They're under attack right now by AI and by Congress hiding provisions in the defense bill that they don't want anybody to talk about, but we are here to talk about it because I am the educated hillbilly. And no, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. All right, y'all. What is going on? Well, my title tonight is Closer Than NATO. Congress is quietly merging the U.S. and Israeli military and letting AI pull the trigger. So, welcome back to the Hillbilly Think Tank. I'm your host. I'm a Navy combat veteran. I'm a hospital corpsman, an independent duty corpsman, and a Fleet Marine Force hospital corpsman. That means I didn't just do time with the Navy and clinics, hanging out with nurses, but I actually was on the battlefield with infantry Marines, with special operations capable platoon in the 15th MU. So now that I've retired from the military, I've been a VA employee, but since 2020, I decided to leave that career, come on back to Kentucky on the Troops to Teacher program, and I'm a public school teacher. I taught for 2 years right here in Hardin County. Loved it. Decided I want to keep on serving and that I want to be your next District 3 magistrate. So I now work in JCPS, so I don't have any conflict of interest. But I'm still living and loving right here in Hardin County. All right. So let's again, like I said, talk about something that slipped into the news quietly this week and slipped right out again without anybody really hearing or paying attention. Buried inside a massive defense bill written in the kind of language that's designed to make your eyes glaze over. But that's every American who cares about who controls our military, our weapons technology, and our foreign policy need to understand. Congress is moving to integrate the United States military with the Israeli military at a level deeper than we have with any NATO ally. Any of them. Germany, France, the United Kingdom, any country we've been treaty bound to defend for 80 years. So even our friends over there in England, we're not giving them this type of love. At the same time, the Secretary of Defense, Whiskey Pete Kegsbreath, is pushing to let artificial intelligence make lethal decisions on the battlefield without what he calls ideological constraints, meaning without ethical constraints. And much of the combat AI this country is moving towards, it comes from Israel. Put those three things together and you have a story that every American, especially every American who has ever worn the uniform that I wore and loved, or someone who loved those people, well, they need to hear this. So let's go on ahead and break it down, because this is unlike anything we have seen before. So again, the U.S. military is going to merge with the Israeli
neighborhood. There's so much that is going on at this point in time, and we do have a special guest that is going to be joining us with some good news. So first and foremost, I do want to show you what we are discussing tonight, ladies and gents. Let's go ahead and show you that thumbnail. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing, oh boy, this is probably the biggest news story of the week. You're not going to believe this, but right now, Congress is moving forward with legislation that would merge the U.S. military with the Israeli military. No, we are not joking. This legislation kind of snuck by, and it is already moving forward. So that's probably going to be the biggest story of the week, unless something else crazy happens. But this is a big one. I'm going to tell you guys what Congress members are trying to fight back against this, but very, very concerning. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump had an interview with Fox News on Sunday, or actually Saturday evening, about the war in Iran. And he accidentally admits something here about this war. But Donald Trump totally bombed this interview. But also it goes to show you that they have no plan of moving towards any type of a real negotiation anytime soon.
So why is there no plan to move forward with a negotiation anytime soon? Well, after you hear me here break it down for you, you'll understand why, and that really won't even bother being a question anymore. So this past Tuesday, House Republicans released the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. If you remember, the price tag is $1.5 trillion. Buried inside this year's bill is Section 224. It's called the United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. And what it proposes is unlike anything this country has done before. Section 224 would require a Pentagon official to coordinate joint research, joint production, and data sharing between the United States and Israel across artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, quantum computing, and other emerging weapons systems. Ben Freeman, an analyst at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, reviewed this provision and called it unprecedented. He said it would give Israel a higher level of military industrial integration with the United States than we maintain with any other country on earth. Not a NATO ally, not Canada, not the United Kingdom, any country. Full stop. Now, since 1948, the United States has provided Israel with more than $200 billion in aid. That's an extraordinary commitment. And now, on top of that, Congress wants to merge our defense technology infrastructure, AI, quantum systems, autonomous weapons, cyber, with theirs, without a public debate, without a national conversation, tucked in to a subsection of an annual defense bill. Now, what could go wrong with this? Well, the proposal also includes expanding co-production facilities in Mississippi and Arkansas. That means co-producing Israeli and American military industrial technologies. Analysts warn that when a foreign government has production facilities on American soil, in American congressional districts, employing American workers, that government gains leverage over the American political system. Lawmakers representing those districts have constituents whose livelihoods depend on that relationship continuing. That's how political influence works, and it's a concern worth taking seriously, regardless of which country we're talking about. But again, remember what we just heard there in that clip. We're not really serious about these negotiations. By the time we're done tonight, you'll understand why we can't be serious if this Section 224 goes through and passes in this defense bill. Now, so that brings us to where this story gets genuinely alarming. At the exact same moment that Congress is moving to deepen military technology integration with Israel, sharing AI research, autonomous weapon systems, and sensitive defense data, Defense Secretary Whiskey Pete Kegsbreath is pushing to evolve the military through AI as fast as possible and insists on using the technology in any legal way without what he calls ideological constraints. Again, remember, something can be completely legal and also be completely unethical. So let's just go ahead and translate that a little bit more. Kegsbreath wants AI systems making battlefield decisions, identifying targets, speeding strikes, and he doesn't want ethical guardrails slowing that process down. Not one iota. And he's not alone at the top. President Trump recently called off plans to sign a new AI executive order, which would have established some oversight of AI development, because he was worried it could, in his words, get in the way of America's lead over China in its AI technology. So let's be clear where we are. The Secretary of Defense wants battlefield AI without ideological constraints, those pesky ethical constraints. The president doesn't want executive oversight of AI development. And Congress is moving to deepen our AI integration with Israel, a country that has been one of the world's most aggressive developers and deployers of autonomous weapon systems, more deeply than we are integrated with any other nation on this earth. Now, I want to stop here and give credit where credit is due, because not everyone at the Pentagon is on board with this approach, and those voices deserve to be heard. Now, if you remember, there is an admiral from Special Operations Command named Admiral Frank Bradley. Now, if you recall, Whiskey Pete already made Admiral Bradley his fall guy when issues arose with the ethics of the strikes that Whiskey Pete was having the Navy make there in the Caribbean, when in our little foray there against Venezuela, if you recall that. So Admiral Bradley, this is Admiral Bradley, he was the fall guy for that. And Whiskey Pete threw this admiral right under the bus during that military operation. Well, what does Admiral Bradley have to say about this AI integration with no ethical constraints? He put it plainly. He said that when it comes to AI and lethal operations, we as humans, this is his quote, have to have the confidence that it's going to deliver violence only where we intend it to be delivered, unquote. That is the voice of a military leader who has actually thought about what it means to let a machine decide who lives and who dies on a battlefield. That is the kind of sober, experienced judgment that should be driving this conversation. Now think about it. Whiskey Pete Kegsbreath sued Claude AI, Anthropic, because Claude was not allowed by the makers, the developers of that AI, to make decisions that were autonomous, meaning separated from human decision making, that didn't run things by a human before they decided to kill humans. And Whiskey Pete put that company on a list that only companies that are our enemies has been put on before. Countries like China, Russia. So let's think about that. All right. Again, Admiral Frank Bradley is the voice of a military who's actually thought about what it means to let a machine decide who lives or who dies. Because here's the reality. AI systems, even sophisticated ones, they make mistakes. They misidentify targets. Think about it. Think about what happened in Iran with the hundreds of schoolgirls. So this admiral has seen it happen. AI systems operate on flawed data. They cannot exercise moral judgment. They are amoral. They cannot look a situation in the eye and say, ooh, something is wrong here. They execute the parameters they were given. And when those parameters are wrong, like they were in Iran with the schoolgirls, when the data is bad, when the situation on the ground has changed, like it had at the school, when there are civilians where the algorithm didn't expect them, people die. We know this. We've seen it happen. And the history of warfare is full of tragedies that resulted from moving faster than human judgment could keep up with. Now, move faster than human thought without the realization that you're operating on flawed data. And what happens? Now, let's fold Israel into this connection. And this is where I really need you to pay attention and think about it. Israel has been one of the most aggressive developers of autonomous and AI-driven weapon systems in the world. Their military technology is sophisticated, battle-tested, and deeply integrated with their national security apparatus. Much of the combat AI that the Pentagon is already moving toward Israel has roots with Israel. Israeli development, Israeli testing, Israeli design philosophy built on years of conflict in Gaza and in the broader region. Think now Lebanon. Now, this is not a criticism of the technology's effectiveness. It may be very effective. But here's the question every American should be asking. When we integrate our AI weapon systems with Israel's at an unprecedented level, sharing research, sharing production, sharing data, whose targeting priorities are baked into those systems, whose rules of engagement shaped the training data, whose definition of a legitimate target was used when the algorithm was being built. These aren't paranoid questions. These are the questions that military ethicists, senior commanders like Admiral Bradley, and defense analysts are already asking quietly inside the Pentagon, away from cameras. And they deserve public answers, not subsections in a defense bill hidden and tucked away. Public answers in open hearings before Congress votes. Here's what the American people actually think about all of this when they're asked. A poll released this week by the Institute for Global Affairs found that just 16% of Americans, 16%, only 16%, support Israel supplying Israel with weapons without restrictions. 16%. That means 84% of this country across party lines want some level of conditions, some oversights, some limits on military support. And yet Congress in both parties keeps moving in the opposite direction. Senator Chris Vollen-Holland this weekend criticized his own Democratic Party for what he calls reflexive support. going along with Israel policy, not because lawmakers have made a principled decision, but because opposing, well, it feels politically dangerous. At the same time, the administration is pushing battlefield AI without guardrails, calling ethical oversight and ideological constraint, and pulling back on executive orders that would have provided some level of accountability, y'all. When 84% of Americans want oversight and conditions, and the people running our military are moving in the opposite direction faster than ever, with AI systems that they want to operate without constraint, that is a crisis of democratic accountability, and it is happening right now. Now, y'all, you might be asking me, Spencer Keck, you say you're running for magistrate. So why does this matter to folks in Hardin County, Kentucky? Well, because every war this country has fought in my lifetime started with decisions made in Washington that the American people were not fully informed about until it was too late. Think about that. I served in 2 of those wars. I served in the first Gulf War, and I served in Operation Enduring Freedom, that 20-year war. I know what it is like when American people, like I said earlier, are not fully informed until it's too late. And I served in those wars. I know that those decisions, well, they have a cost. And I'm not worried about what it costs in dollars as much as I'm worried about what it costs in people and their lives, and young men and young women from this rural county and from our neighboring counties, urban, rural, and in between. We come home different when we come home from those conflicts, or we don't come home at all. Now, we're talking about letting AI systems trained in part on Israeli combat data integrated with Israeli defense infrastructure at an unprecedented level, operating without what the defense secretary considers ideological constraints, make lethal decisions on the battlefield. We know this is a defense secretary that doesn't like ethical constraints. He's already shown it, and he's already used Admiral Bradley as someone to throw under the bus when he didn't use those ideological constraints, ethical constraints. He felt it was fully legal. He felt, even though that is yet to be decided. So just think about what's already been done in Venezuela and in the Caribbean. Think of what's already happened in Iran with the schoolgirls. So we need the guardrails that senior military commanders like Admiral Bradley are asking for. We need American people to be fully informed about this subsection 2024. Because we're doing it right now without a national debate. Now, I'm not saying that the U.S.-Israel relationship is wrong. I am saying that AI has no place in national defense. Or am I? No, I'm not. But we definitely need to truly consider what we're saying we're allowing when we allow AI in national defense. And I am saying that the decisions that are this consequential, decisions about who controls our weapons, whose technology shapes our targeting systems, and whether a machine or a human being decides to deliver lethal force, well, those decisions belong to the American people, not to a subsection of a defense bill, not to a defense secretary who thinks ethics are an obstacle. It definitely doesn't belong to an algorithm. The least we can ask The absolute bare minimum is that this happens in the open with debate, with hearings, congressional hearings that are serious with teeth, with senior commanders like Admiral Bradley at the table, with the American people actually informed about who is being decided and what is being decided on in their name. We need to know who's making this decision, and we need to know that if our brand is being put on it, the brand of the USA, then we need to decide it openly, transparently. Now, y'all, I'll keep reading the bills that don't get read. I'll keep asking the questions that don't get asked, and I'll keep bringing it home to Hardin County. Because what happens in Washington doesn't stay in Washington. It ends up on the doorsteps of our families right here in District 3 of Hardin County and in all of Hardin County. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank, y'all. Take care of each other. Remember, we are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. And we cannot get through this without transparency. All right, y'all. Hey, Tom, glad to see you made it. Tom says, in short, the U.S. Congress, if progress is to move forward, what then is Congress, is also learning the finer points of genocide from the IDF. Yeah. And Tom says, remember that Brian Thompson of the United Healthcare was proud that under his direction, AI systems were implemented that denied 90% of health insurance claims off the bat to save the company money. Yep, there we go. Coffee Cats says, I hope you know you're appreciated. Well, Coffee Cats, I have been wondering, but I appreciate you bringing it up that I am. Definitely been having my doubts. All right, y'all. This is just absolutely too important to ignore. So again, please, 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 please remember, this is about our neighbors. It is about being our brother's keeper, being our sister's keeper. The only way we can stay united so that we don't fall is by demanding transparency for ourselves and for our neighbors. This has real implications. It's our brand. It's the brand of the USA. We cannot allow it to be mired down deep within a $1.5 trillion National Defense Authorization Act that obviously now is going to hand even more money to a foreign power that is not NATO and that we have not voted on giving that much power on our soil. It's bad enough that we're right now giving Qatar their own military base in Idaho, and they're not part of NATO. I know that I didn't vote on that. There was no referendum for me to decide whether a foreign power can have a base here in the United States, but we know that that is one of the powers that is all for this Iran war also, along with the IDF. All right, y'all, probably said too much. Remember everyone deployed right now, because this is what we're talking about. Their life is riding on this. Bless your corazon. I hope you had a great weekend. I had a pretty darn good one. I'm looking forward to a great week and a great summer, because my summer break started on Friday afternoon. And let's just go out with a few laughs here from the pups before we head completely out. This was one of my pups when he found a turtle. All right, and the last video I'm gonna play here is a tribute to my dad. My dad that died from Agent Orange after 2 rounds of cancer in 1 year, and in less than a little over a year, I guess, after he found my brother hanging in his closet, my same brother that lost his leg and hand in Afghanistan, in that 20-year war that I'm talking about, that I was involved in, that both of my brothers were involved in together. They were both deployed together when Kelly lost his leg and hand in Afghanistan. I'm going to show you a video next where I have the flag that was folded and put in this shadow box to commemorate my dad, who fought in Vietnam and was killed by the war in Vietnam. It just took years for him to die, and it took for him to die after my brother died there. So I'll finish up. Here is the shadow box. Here is Scout.
Is his legs getting bigger now?
So I was reading an op-ed about it where they are linking different.
Hey man, I'm on air. I'll call you back. All right, y'all. So please remember, again, everyone deployed overseas, and call your congressman, tell them to stomp out Provision 224 from the National Defense Authorization Act unless they have deep and open and transparent congressional hearings on this. It is too important not to. Absolutely, we are at the crossroads, staring it in the face.
Your great grandfather didn't grow solid because they were simple.